The New Kingdom, 1570 to 1069 said. It is the 70-day, New Kingdom process of mummification with which most modern people are familiar. It has been written about in great detail, and was the standard type of mummification used until the Roman period. It is recorded in full here, though some stages of the procedure already have been mentioned. The embalming of the body lasted from the 1st to the 52nd day. This took place in the Pernefer, the house of mummification. First, the necessary organs were removed. The brain was pulled out through the nose using a long, bronze probe. Other organs were removed through an incision made in the abdomen and a cut made in the diaphragm. The kidneys and heart were left inside the body. Once removed, the organs were washed, soaked in natron, treated with hot resin, bandaged, and packed in the canopic jars. The body cavity was then cleaned, probably with palm wine and spices, then stuffed with linen, natron, and resin. This packing helped speed up the drying process, prevent the body from collapsing into itself, and fight the odor of decay. The toenails and fingernails were tied down to prevent their loss. Then the body was dried out with large amounts of natron. This part of the process took about 40 days. Next, the body was taken to the Wabat, the house of purification. There it was washed in Nile water. The skull was stuffed with resin-soaked linen. Then the body cavity was emptied and repacked with linen bags of sawdust or myrrh soaked with resin, and the incision was sewn up. The whole body surface was then rubbed with a mixture of cedar oil, wax, natron, and gum, and then dusted with spices. The nose was plugged, and pads or onions were inserted under the eyelids. The whole body was then coated in hot resin to close the pores and protect the surface. From the 53rd day to the day of the funeral, the body was carefully wrapped. Each digit and limb was separately bandaged, and then the torso was covered. Large linen shrouds that enveloped the whole body were frequently placed in between the layers of bandages. Amulets, jewelry, and masks were wrapped within the bandages. From both Old and New Kingdom sources it is known that the ceremony involved in mummification was just as important as the physical operations themselves. Each stage of the process was accompanied by an appropriate ritual. After the New Kingdom, 1069 Seth 395 said. Throughout Egyptian history, the tombs of the wealthy and royal were robbed for their immense riches. Coffins, mummies, and wrappings were torn apart to get to the gold and precious stones inside. During Dynasty 21, many of the royal mummies whose tombs had been robbed were reburied with all the proper ceremonies to ensure their continued existence in the afterlife. During this process of reburial, many noticed that, though the New Kingdom method of drying the body preserved it, the appearance of the body was not very lifelike. Thus a new step was added to the mummification process. Before wrapping, packing materials, including linen, fat, mud, sand, and sawdust, were placed under the skin to fill out the body surfaces. Also, the viscera, instead of being put in canopic jars, were wrapped up with figures of the sons of Horus and repacked inside the body. The outside surface of the mummy was then painted, giving it a doll-like appearance. Unfortunately, sometimes the packing materials changed over time and caused some of the bodies to swell. After Dynasty 21, the art of the embalmer rapidly declined. By the time Egypt was conquered by Persia, Greece, and Rome, a wide range of people were being mummified. Embalmers could not afford to take the time they had taken before, and often bodies had already started to decay before the experts could get to them. X-rays of mummies from this time period show wrappings that cover incomplete bodies with missing parts replaced by bones, pottery, or palm fibers. Instead of using the traditional methods for embalming, the embalmers covered the bodies with a black resin like bitumen, from which we get the term mummy, which is Arabic for bituminized thing. The emphasis for these later mummies was not on the treatment of the body but on the external additions. Within the bandages were wrapped masks, breastplates, and foot coverings made of cartonnage. During the latest periods of ancient Egypt, portraits of the deceased were painted on thin wooden boards and wound into the bandages. The bandages themselves were wrapped in elaborate, diamond-shaped patterns. The centers of the patterns were often decorated with gilded, gold-covered studs. It is unfortunate that our earliest complete narrative of mummification comes to us from this late period of Egyptian history. A text from the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, c. 440b.c.e, is instructive for comparison with the conclusions of modern scientists studying the process, like A. Lucas. Once the mummification process was completed, the funeral ceremonies began. L.